If there's one thing I've learned after doing this 100 times, it's this. You do not need to go viral to make an impact. You just need to keep showing up with intention, generosity, and heart. I'm Sylvia Garibaldi, founder and CEO of a well-established marketing training and done-for-you services company, tailored specifically for the modern legal and financial professional worldwide. While it's taken some trial and error to figure out which methods get the best results for professionals who are looking to grow their practices, fast forward to today, my team and I have nailed down and perfected a process that has helped so many of our clients consistently achieve outstanding results and create a legacy for their practices. I created the Serve First, Sell Later marketing podcast to give you simple, actionable, non-salesy, and results-driven marketing to grow your legal or financial practice like so many of our clients have. If you're a lawyer, mediator, financial, or divorce professional who is looking to become highly visible and wants to create a practice that makes an impact, then you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Serve First, Sell Later marketing podcast. I'm your host, Sylvia Garibaldi. Today's episode is a very special one because this isn't just another episode. This is episode 100. So when I first started this show, I could have never imagined we'd be here, with listeners tuning in from 61 countries and 582 cities around the world. That number still blows my mind because it tells me no matter where you are, whether you're a lawyer in Toronto, a mediator in Sydney, or a divorce professional in London, or maybe a dispute resolution practitioner in New York, we're all trying to answer the same question. How do I build a business that grows consistently? And that's exactly what Serve First, Sell Later marketing was built around. And if I'm honest, hitting record that very first time was actually terrifying. There was no perfect plan, no big studio, just a message I felt needed to be shared. That marketing can be human, authentic, and still incredibly powerful while also being easily implementable. So simple, powerful marketing strategies that work. Because I've seen too many amazing professionals that are smart, talented, mission-driven, but they struggle to get noticed. And it's not because they're not great at what they do, but because they don't know how to show it. So I hopefully helped you as well to find your voice, build your visibility, and learn how to connect with clients in a way that feels natural and not forced. And I'll admit there were moments along the way when it felt very overwhelming. I wanted to make sure that this podcast served my audience specifically and directly, and not all professionals, but those in the legal, mediation, and divorce world. So, the type of professionals doing deeply human, emotionally charged work that are guiding clients through conflict, uncertainty, and transformation. That's who this show is for. And if that's you, I hope you know how grateful I am that you're here. So today, we're not just celebrating a milestone, we're celebrating momentum. And so the kind that builds quietly through every episode, every conversation, and every person who's pressed play along the way. Because if there's one thing I've learned after doing this 100 times, it's this. You do not need to go viral to make an impact. You just need to keep showing up with intention, generosity, and heart. So in this 100th episode, I want to take you behind the mic to share what I've learned and some very key lessons, what's changed, and what surprised me the most. And hopefully these things will also resonate with you to help you move your business forward. Let's get started. If there's one thing that 100 episodes have taught me, it's this. Consistency is the most underestimated growth strategy there is. Not perfection, not fancy tools, not posting every single day, just showing up. And I know it sounds very simple, but it is incredibly powerful. So when I started this podcast, I made a quiet promise to myself that no matter how busy things got, I would keep going one episode at a time. And I'll be honest, there were moments when it felt very hard. Some weeks I'd be recording at night after a long client day. Other weeks I'd be traveling or knee deep in marketing plans for clients. And there were definitely times when I thought, is anyone really listening? But what I discovered is that consistency does have a quiet power. It's not loud or flashy. It works behind the scenes, building trust, familiarity, and connection long before you realize it's actually happening. So each episode, each post, each conversation is really like a small deposit in the trust bank. So you won't see the interest right away, but over time, that consistency compounds. And one day, someone messages you just out of the blue and says, "Hey, I've been listening for months and your podcast gave me the courage to finally start my own marketing." Or, "I've been following you for a while and I feel like I already know you." I think that's when you start to realize that consistency doesn't just build visibility, it actually builds relationship equity. And that's exactly what I see with my clients when they are posting, when they are presenting, continually doing this over and over again. That's when they see the results. And it's so important as a lesson that consistency is a very powerful tool. And it's really underestimated. And people just think, oh, well, is consistency really going to get me there? And it will be one of the key things that will pull you forward. So, when I start working with lawyers, mediators, and divorce professionals, they often say something like, "Hey, Sylvia, I'm doing all the right things, but it's just not clicking. I'm posting, but I'm not getting clients." And what I tell them is this: posting alone isn't enough. Consistency isn't just about frequency, it's also about focus. So, it's about showing up, yes, consistently, but having a clear message again and again so that people start to connect the dots between who you are, what you do, and the difference that you make. One of my clients, who's a mediator, used to post only when she had time, which really wasn't often. And she told me that she felt invisible online. So, what we did is we shifted her strategy to just one post a week, but those one posts a week were very intentional. And it spoke directly to the challenges that her clients faced and offered simple, empathetic solutions. And I'll tell you, within a few months, she started seeing people messaging her saying, "Hey, I've been following your posts for a while. Can we chat?" So, no ads, no gimmicks, just steady, thoughtful visibility. And hey, I know this doesn't sound sexy or it's not a really interesting or amazing new tool, but it's something that works over and over again. Another client, a financial professional, committed to hosting one webinar a month. Okay. And the first one that she hosted was without our assistance, and she had about 10 people attend. But she stayed with it. And as she engaged in our services, we helped her build a series of webinars. And her second webinar, she had over 60 registrants. And she built relationships that led to consistent referrals from those that attended and then wanted to attend the next one. And it's been growing. The attendance has been growing, and so has the business after each webinar. So that's what consistency does here. It builds a rhythm that turns strangers into supporters. So here's why consistency is so powerful. I mean, this is what I've found, and this is what my clients see as well, is that it creates predictability in a world where there's so much noise. When people see you showing up regularly, sharing value, being genuine, staying present, they begin to trust you. And trust is what drives referrals, inquiries, and long-term clients. So the truth is, your audience, whether it's potential clients or referral partners, aren't waiting for perfection. They're waiting for reliability. They want to know, are you still showing up? Can I count on you to deliver? Because if you can be consistent in your marketing, you will be consistent in your work. And that consistency is really what earns you that credibility. So for me, this podcast became my own accountability partner. Every week, I knew I had a commitment, not just to numbers or downloads, but to my listeners and also to my team who was there waiting to actually start producing each episode and to encourage me and to push me along the way to say, okay, these are the due dates. This is when you need to get things over to us. So, to the people who tune in while driving to mediation, prepping for court, or walking their dog before work, this podcast taught me that marketing isn't just about chasing attention. It's really just about earning trust over time, and it's earning your trust over time. So, if you've ever felt like maybe your marketing isn't working, I want to encourage you to just keep going. Don't get lost in the comparison trap or the vanity metrics, because boy, oh boy, do I see a lot of that online. I really do believe that your next opportunity might be just one more consistent effort away. And so I tell my clients all the time, you don't need to be everywhere. You just need to be somewhere consistently. And that's how you build momentum. That's how you move from being an option to being the person people think of when they need help. And that's been one of the greatest lessons of this journey for me and for everyone I've had the privilege of working with. Because consistency creates credibility, credibility creates that connection, and connection leads to growth. So, over the course of 100 episodes, I've had the privilege of sitting down with lawyers, mediators, divorce professionals, financial experts, thought leaders, and they all share one thing in common: a desire to make their work matter. So, every conversation offered something new for me, a perspective, a reminder, a moment of clarity. And when I look back, there are a few key lessons that stand out, and I want to share some of them with you, particularly how they relate to marketing, connection, and growth. So, lesson number one for me was visibility comes from clarity, not volume. So, one of the biggest patterns I've noticed is that professionals who stand out aren't necessarily the ones who post the most. They're the ones who are very clear in their messaging, but they're doing it consistently. And so they know exactly what they want to be known for. They speak directly to the people that they serve. So make a note of that. They don't speak to anyone and everyone because their message is focused. Their visibility feels natural and not forced. And when your message is clear, your marketing stops feeling like you're chasing attention, and it really just feels like you're building momentum. And I think that kind of visibility is what builds trust. The second thing I learned is that relationships will always be the most powerful marketing strategy. So, the more conversations I've had, the more convinced I've become that relationships are really the heartbeat of every successful practice. So, referrals, collaborations, introductions, they all start with genuine connection. And every professional who's built a thriving business has done that through relationships and not shortcuts. So, they follow up. They give before they ask, and they look for ways to help others succeed, because in the end, business growth is really about relationship growth. When you nurture your network with consistency and care, your visibility multiplies, so does your credibility. And another theme that emerged from these 100 episodes is that authority isn't something that you claim, it's something that you earn over time, and it doesn't happen quickly. So it comes from showing up consistently and sharing what you know freely through presentations, conversations, posts, webinars, podcasts, guest appearances. So when you lead with generosity, you build a reputation that goes beyond your credentials, because people begin to associate your name with trust and reliability and also expertise. And I think that's how authority is created, not by talking about what you do, but by demonstrating it in service to others. So, one thing I've learned through so many powerful conversations with our guests on the podcast is that your story, meaning your why, is what people remember most. So, the professionals who share what led them to do this work, who open up about their own experiences and lessons, they really are the ones who attract clients who truly connect with them. So, your story is the bridge between your expertise and your audience's trust. And that's what makes your marketing human. So when people understand not just what you do, but why you do it, they see you as more than just a service provider. They see you as someone who gets it. So if there's one truth that ties every conversation together, it's that growth takes time. Success in any field does not happen overnight, and don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Not in law, not in mediation, not in marketing. It just happens with patience, persistence, and courage to keep showing up when the results are not instant. And I think that's part of the difficult part for many people is to keep doing over and over and showing up and tweaking things, but not seeing instant results. It's really those that stick with it that will see the results. So I think every episode has reminded me that progress isn't always visible right away. Sometimes it's a message from a listener months later. Maybe it's a referral that traces back to a single post that you wrote 6 months ago. Consistency may not always feel glamorous, but it's what turns effort into results. And I think that's what's really important. So, the lessons from our guests, they're not just marketing principles, they're really also habits of momentum. And I think the best part is that they're accessible to anyone who are willing to show up, to serve, and to trust the process. So, one of the things that surprised me most over these 100 episodes isn't just what I've learned from my guests, it's actually what I've learned from you, the listeners. When I started this podcast, I thought of it as a way to teach, to share, to give professional strategies that I know my listeners could use. But what I didn't expect was how much connection and feedback would actually come from it. Let me share with you. I started receiving messages from people all around the world, mediators, lawyers, coaches, financial professionals, who told me that these conversations really help them feel less alone in the work that they do, because a lot of them are solopreneurs. Some said that they've learned more from these episodes than from most marketing workshops they've ever attended. Others have shared how an episode gave them the clarity or courage to finally put themselves out there. But I think what really touched me were the personal notes that came from our listeners. And they are ones that said, "Hey, I listen before my morning swim in the ocean," or "I play episodes while on the soccer field watching my kids' games," or "I listen while I'm making my first coffee of the day." These are true comments that are made by our listeners. And I've also been in conversations with people who have directly quoted me from an episode that resonated with them the most. And this is word for word memorized content. And I think it's examples like this that really humble me every time that I think about it, because it means that this podcast has become more than just a marketing resource. It's actually become part of people's routines because it's a trusted voice that travels with them through the everyday moments of life. And to me, that's one of the highest compliments. What's also been incredible is how this podcast, something that started purely as a way to serve, by the way, became one of my most powerful marketing tools. Not because it sells anything directly, but because it builds connection. So I'm not selling specific things in my podcast episodes, but what I've seen is it leads to new clients who are listening to the podcast. It's created collaborations. It's opened doors to speaking invitations, partnerships, and referrals I never could have planned for. And it's also helped me promote and support my referral partners' workshops, their events and projects, amplifying their voices right alongside mine. And I think the funny thing is, none of that was part of the original goal. The goal was to give and to educate, to create something useful, consistent, and real. But I think that's the magic of serving first. When you focus on showing up with value, not with a pitch, you build trust that keeps growing even when you're not in the room. And that's when your content starts to work for you. It becomes your invisible sales team, one that never sleeps, never pushes, and never needs to chase. So if I could define the return on investment for this podcast, it wouldn't be downloads or analytics, though yes, being in 61 countries and 582 cities still blows me away. But I think the real ROI has been in the relationships, the ripple effects, and the unexpected ways people have found me or found their own spark through this show. It's in the email from a mediator who said, "Your episode reminded me why I exactly started this work." It's in the lawyer who took a quote from an episode and shared it with me word for word. It's in the divorce financial planner who used what she learned here to grow her referral network. And so this is just real impact. And that's what happens when you lead with generosity. So, what has this journey actually taught me? And I think that momentum doesn't come from one big moment. It comes from showing up week after week, episode after episode, even when no one's clapping yet. And I think that's a really important one. It comes from trusting that the right people are listening, even if you can't see them. And it comes from believing that generosity compounds, just like consistency does, right? So every episode that I've shared has been a reminder that when you serve first, you never have to chase opportunity because opportunity starts finding you. I hope that resonates with you because when you think of the consistency and the work that you're putting in through your social media, maybe through your presentations, your conversations one on one with people, your sales consultations, all of these things are important. But it's important to understand that once you show up consistently, opportunity will start to find you. And as I said, if you're someone listening right now who's been thinking about starting something, maybe a newsletter, a webinar series, a workshop, but you've been waiting for the perfect time or that perfect plan, please let this be your sign. Start before you're ready because you are ready right now, because you never know what it might grow into. So for me, this podcast has become more than content. It's become a community and it's become a reminder of how powerful generosity can be as a growth strategy. So over the last 100 episodes, I've learned more than I expected, not just about marketing, but about momentum, leadership, and the kind of support that makes long-term growth possible. But when I look back, there are definitely 10 lessons that really stand out, and I want to share them with you very quickly. The first one is start before you're ready. Every great thing starts messy. It really does. This podcast started with a single mic, a quiet idea, and a lot of unknowns. But if I'd waited for the perfect setup, Serve First, Sell Later marketing podcast wouldn't exist. So you don't need certainty to start. You just need to gain certainty by starting. Lesson number 2, you need to be consistent even when no one's clapping. And let me tell you, the early days were quiet, but consistency compounds. Every week, I was building trust with listeners, with myself, with my team, and even with the process. So, really, really important. This is built through repetition, through steady effort that tells people, I'll be here next week as well. The third lesson I learned is that people don't connect with perfectly polished, they connect with honesty. The episodes that resonated most weren't the ones with perfect sound or scripted delivery. They were the ones where I spoke from the heart and shared things about what I was seeing in marketing and what works and what doesn't work. So authenticity is magnetic. When you let people see the real you, they will lean in closer. Lesson number 4. The more I collaborated with guests, referral partners, and peers, the more I saw what's possible when we share ideas and audiences. Because collaboration doesn't divide opportunity, it can actually multiply it. And I think that was a really important one. Lesson number 5 is behind every episode of this podcast is an incredible team that helps bring it to life. So, from editing to scheduling, from graphics to promotion, my team have been the steady hands that make the ideas sound, look, and feel very polished. There were times that I would record an episode at the last minute or very late at night, and my team was right there, turning chaos into consistency. And so their creativity, their patience, and their reliability, that's what really made it possible for this podcast to stay consistent for 100 episodes. So I want to give a big thank you to my team because they've been absolutely awesome in helping me reach this milestone. But if you're building something big, I want you to remember this. You don't have to do this yourself. Having the right people around you doesn't just make the work easier, it makes the outcome better. Lesson number 6 is sometimes a post, an episode, or a small conversation doesn't seem to land. But then months later, someone reaches out and says, Hey, I've been following your work for a while. And that's when you realize that nothing you create is actually wasted. Every act of generosity plants a seed. Please keep planting. Lesson number 7 is the more you show up, the more people begin to associate your name with consistency, but more importantly, reliability. So visibility is not vanity, all right? It's trust built in public. So people can't hire or refer you if they don't remember you. Please show up even when you think no one's watching because someone always is. Lesson number 8 is when you lead with value, people will notice, plain and simple. When you educate, when you support, or you encourage others without expecting something in return, opportunities multiply naturally. So serving first has never once failed me. It's the foundation of everything that I teach, and it's the reason this community continues to grow. Lesson number 9 is that consistency doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. So, building repeatable systems for content, for outreach, for client engagement really frees up time for creativity and strategy. And I believe that freedom comes from structure and not just from spontaneity. Lesson number 10 is this podcast is proof that momentum does take time. You can't rush trust or compress relationships. But if you stay steady, if you keep learning, serving, and showing up, growth is inevitable. It might not be fast, but it will be lasting. So, those are the 10 lessons that really stand out for me after recording 100 episodes. And I think each one comes from a mix of reflection and ideas and concepts and things that I've learned along the way. But if there's one message I want to leave you with, it's this: progress rarely feels dramatic, but it's always happening behind the scenes. So please keep showing up, keep serving, because there's someone out there that is listening and watching. So, as I wrap up this 100th episode celebration, I keep coming back to while I may be the voice behind this mic, this podcast has always been a collective effort. So, to every listener, whether this is your first episode or your 100th, thank you. Thank you for pressing play, for inviting me into your morning walks, your commutes, your coffee breaks, and even your swims in the ocean. Thank you for letting this podcast be a small part of your world. So, to the incredible guests who've shared their experiences, their strategies, and their vulnerability, thank you for trusting me to tell your stories. You've made this podcast what it is, which is a place where honesty and strategy meet. And to my team, who is really the heartbeat behind the scenes, thank you for everything, from editing to scheduling, from the graphics and audio to the small details that most people never see. You are the reason we've stayed consistent for 100 weeks straight, and you've turned rough outlines into polished episodes, last-minute recordings into professional productions, and ideas into assets that reach people in 61 countries and 582 cities. And to my colleagues and referral partners, thank you for cheering this show on, for sharing episodes, for inviting me to speak, and for helping me spread the message to new audiences. So as I look ahead to the next 100 episodes, I am super excited. There's so much more I want to explore, deeper conversations about thought leadership, community building, and how professionals can scale with proven marketing strategies. And of course, how to save you, the listeners, time to implement marketing strategies that actually work. So yes, you can expect more guest interviews, more behind the scenes strategy sessions, and more practical guidance on how to build a practice with ideas and strategies that we know work. But above all, you can expect this. I'll keep showing up for you just as I always have, with more ideas and lots of ways to help you grow your practice. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. And here's what I'd love from you. If this podcast has inspired you, maybe it's taught you something new, or simply kept you company, please subscribe, follow, or leave a quick review. I would be most appreciative because it helps more professionals like you discover this community. And if there's someone in your network, a colleague, a referral partner, or a friend who could benefit from what we do, please share it. Send them this episode. I think sharing is one of the most powerful ways to serve. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.